Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with another mod stream. Feeling pretty good about today. Should be able to get some stuff done. You know, I'm feeling kind of liberated. I'm feeling kind of loose and kind of like a come what may, c'est la vie, a blah blah blah, a Frenchie, a headshot machine. I'm feeling kind of like that. You know what I mean? Feeling like I'm ready to pretty much work on whatever I want to work on. And I've already done a little bit of work on HYDRA today. As I minimize this, you'll see I've got a bunch of shit open. I've recently built a plugin, and I'm going to now add it. So what was I going to say? The work that iQuare did today was related to implementing the Gladius. It is sort of working, but it's also not super consistent. I'll show off its current state, and then I'll do some testing with dmatrix because I've added a bunch of code to remove all of the other things, but I think I'm going to have to modify some of this stuff. What's up, Alexander? Welcome to the gay. How you doing, dude? Let's see here. So, actually, one of the things that I wanted to test out real quick before anything else happens was... So it removed Parasite according to the tooltip, but the overlay stayed, which is probably just because I didn't remove the overlay in the code. But I want to see if it spawns. Doesn't seem to spawn broodlings. Obviously that one does. Okay, so we just need to remove the overlay there. And then we'll say unit remove overlay image ID. Oh, actually, I don't even know what the overlays are, actually. So I'm going to have to go find those in Notepad. Parasite. It's 1031. Okay. Pretty cool. Pretty reasonable. Why did Mess leave? I suspect it is some part of the stress that he's been dealing with. I don't really know. He gave no context. Maybe he'll be back. Of course, he's always welcome. All right, so aside from adding the remove overlay, default flags. Okay. So the other thing that I was thinking about with this is, in this case, I've bypassed the ARM timer and set it to 0. And I believe the game hooks code, if there is game hooks code associated with this, it checks to see if Parasite ARM timer is equal to 1. And then it activates the effect. So I think we bypassed it entirely. Now, inversely, I think we might have an easier job if we set the other timers to 1, because the game hooks code checks for 1 and then removes the effect. And so just to dot all of our T's, we might set it to 1 in that sense, right? Like we might just set it to 1 so that it gets removed or whatever. Yeah, he's not really... I checked GameProc as well when I saw that he had left to see if there was any, like, trace or like, the only other thing I haven't checked yet is campaign creations. There's a chance that, like, maybe he made a post there. Well, everything is missing in his subforum there. Oh, he does say on the 27th of August, he said, the subforum will be shut down at the earliest convenience of the administration. I will no longer be maintaining a public-facing presence. That's just him saying that he's taking all other cases, though. Like, he's not saying he's going to shut down GameProc. That's his subforum on a forum. But yeah, the latest news for GameProc is on the 21st of September. So, like, over a month later almost, or almost a month later, I should say, when he talks about some phone game recording that he did. So yeah, maybe there will be more news to come. I don't know. I don't know where his head's at. Presumably he's dealing with some shit. Hopefully things get better for him soon. Anyway, we've got to do some more testing of the code here, so... Yeah, so here it didn't actually get removed. It may have actually bugged it out completely. Yeah, I had to reset it. So that's where I think maybe instead of bothering with the value, I should just set the timer to 1. Like if I set all these timers to 1, right, then the game hooks code can run, and that will take care of the whole thing. One would think, anyway. Like, again, this is just an assumption here of based on how the code works. In the same way, I might not have to remove the overlay if I'm setting it to 1 for like something like energy decay, which I'll test now, because that could be another way to save a little bit of time worrying about this code. So we'll go ahead and plug that in there, because like if I don't have to add like basically copy paste shit like removing the overlay code when it comes to like actually running the restore stuff, then that would be useful. Okay, yeah, it's working now, which is pretty good. So that's a good sign. We'll go ahead and hit him with a Savant. Seems to be fine. We'll double check that one. Yeah, okay, that's working there. Pretty good there. Okay, okay. What else did we add recently? We added... I don't even know what does the generic armor rend, but I added it in here just in case. We can check malediction, which is obviously a slow. Spawn sorrow. I fixed the debt requirements for that finally. Okay, so that obviously works. Just out of curiosity, I want to... Okay, that works for the regular one too, and then it obviously doesn't create the slow afterwards, so that's good. Yeah, I hope it's nothing like actually threatening to his life or to his future or whatever, you know? But at the same time, I mean, I had this conversation with Veek privately, I think it was last month when I was out walking. And we were talking about we were just talking about like the plight that he's in. And I'm a big believer in personal responsibility, which makes it really difficult to square that circle, because I would consider myself to be a friend of his. Like, I don't know what he considers me, but I would look at him like, you know, I want him to succeed and find happiness. And like, I see that he's been through a lot of shit. And regardless of whether you can call that deserved or not, like, I would like him to get to the point where he can find success and like discover his own confidence again and feel like he's worth something, feel like he's worth some content or whatever, right? So like I want him to have a positive experience in life, to put it in a very specific way, right? As broad as I can make it. But it is difficult to feel a like unending amount of sympathy when I know he's got the skills necessary to make some kind of money, and that he constantly is in a situation where money is a problem. Like, squaring these two realities where he could sell his models, or he could do voice work, or, you know, commercial stuff. I mean, these are things he could do, and maybe in some cases he might be morally diametrically opposed to it. In some cases he might believe he cannot do it. And if he believes he can't do it, then he can't do it just because of the belief thing, right? But like in an regardless of what his like estimation is or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, he could do the work. Like, I know he's capable of it because I've seen him do it before. And he might say his skills have atrophied. He couldn't make something as good as what, like, you know, to meet his own personal standard of quality would be impossible or very unlikely or require a lot of effort. Well, he hasn't really put in the effort to even try. And he's also not necessarily, he doesn't have to work for other people. Like, he's working for other people, right? So he doesn't have to work for his own standard of quality. If it's something that somebody else will accept and pay him money for, then that's what secures his future, right? Like, I understand it's a compromise in terms of the quality of art or voice acting or whatever it is you're producing. The product that you are providing, the service you are providing, is not meeting your own personal quality standards, but you can work on that as time goes on and still be able to secure your future. And in terms of like a financial standpoint, like he could do that even now. That's I mean, maybe maybe it's more difficult now because he's just been doing nothing for a long time, and so he's atrophied all of his connections, and he needs to go out and really work like put himself out there. You know what I mean? Maybe he's got to do more work now than he did before, or something to that effect. But I just feel like that's something he could do that would be within his wheelhouse, that would allow him to potentially find some sort of financial success. And I don't pretend to know what's going on in his head. I don't pretend to know what other shit is going on in his personal life that I'm not privy to. I'm sure he could come up with many good reasons in his mind to counter everything I'm saying, because that's really the kind of person he is, where he's logical enough to find a way to like justify whatever he's doing or justify whatever he's not doing. But it is something that he could have done and still probably could do in many respects. And it's hard to feel that like that level of sympathy, where I don't think he's asking for sympathy, but I do think that like when you're trying to be somebody's friend and you're trying to be supportive, I mean, really all I can do is remind him of his competence, remind him of his level of like the caliber of production that he can produce, and then say, like, you're capable of all this shit. Try to assure him that it's not the fucking apocalypse, that the world is not ending, that there's still hope. And then there you go. Like, that's pretty much what I can do. Like, he's got to do the rest. I've got to wait for him to do the rest, you know? So you can't, it's a lead a horse to water, but can't make a drink kind of situation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean, it's a complex situation, I'm sure. Like I said, I don't pretend to know everything about it all. And it's a really impossible thing to say, because as much as I'm a believer of personal responsibility, I also know that the only person who knows as much about his own life is him, really. Like, he's got to make the decisions. And because he's got to make the decisions, because he's responsible for them at the end of the day, he's also got to be the one who necessarily has all the info, right? So I'm sure there's some blind spot that I have in this analysis, but at the end of the day, I feel like it would be endlessly easier to sympathize with his plight, maybe even help him by saying, like, here's some connections that I have that are looking for voice acting. Like, maybe I would have been motivated a bit more to take an active role if I could see a way to actually directly help him. And that way would have opened up, in theory, potentially, if he had already said, I've started to do this, or I found out that, like, oh yeah, he did this voice work, and then I can like send that voice work to somebody who's looking for voice work, or models to somebody who's looking for models. Fuck, I could have even paid him for models, in theory. Like, I could have, which would have been a really weird like situation to be in. But if he was in a position where he needed some extra cash, and I had seen that he had been doing model work, and I needed models, which I do for HYDRA, I would have come up with some way to like send him some money in exchange for the work. Like, that's something I could have done, I should say. I don't know about would, because obviously there's so many different circumstances, right? And it's just, it would have been a lot easier for me to find some way to actively help instead of passively help. And again, like, reinforce it, cheerlead him in a way, and hope that he gets there. Like, that's pretty much all I can do without imposing in a way that would be inappropriate, I think. Like, you know, without trying to force him to drink the water, you know what I mean? With the horse analogy, which I'm sure he would appreciate, as he is a big fan of horse marmalade. But yeah, I've been part of the reason why the streams have been later in the day lately is because of the fact that I've been a bit more active on the CS stuff. I was supposed to have Hammer Meet Anvil second episode out already, but we had some scheduling conflicts with that guy, so that's moved to Sunday. So I was actually supposed to have 2 interviews yesterday, and I would have put out the Hammer Meet Anvil yesterday and the Semi-Pro with Haka today, but things fell through a little bit there, so we moved some stuff around. I'm a bit worried about the Hammer Meet Anvil stuff, just because there is a small number of people who are involved in the mapping scene. Like, it's a very finite number. It would be like if I had to interview people who are making campaigns now in StarCraft or something. Like the number of people is probably higher than the StarCraft campaign maker count. But like, you know, you could probably count on like two hands the people in the StarCraft scene. It's probably maybe four hands or something uh in the CS:GO scene. Like it's not that much better as far as I know anyway. But there's a lot of history to a lot of the stuff that they've done. Like there's one guy who's responsible for like Mirage, which was called Fire or something, CPL Fire, or no, maybe it was CPL Strike. I don't remember. I think it was Strike. But like there's people who have been making maps in CS:GO that already made maps in 1.6, like years and years and years ago, like decades of history basically, or like at least a decade. So, well, I would like it to be a separate podcast from Semi-Pro, just because it's very much like that's part where I can have a little bit more of my opinion shared without it feeling out of place as much. I feel like that one is probably the weakest one that I've put out, just because that was like a nice learning experience for when you have somebody who's not as camera uh, comfortable on camera as some of the other guests that I've had, and he's like, "Oh, I've got like he's a little bit slower, a little bit drier, and also some of his answers were shorter, and so I had to bring more to the table than I did in order for it to be smooth. And that's why it wasn't as smooth as I would have liked it to be. That's definitely something that I noticed looking back at that one. Of course, if you listen back to it at double speed, it kind of fixes some of the issues of pacing. But when I was listening back to it at normal speed, it was pretty obvious, like a bit more stuttering, bit more incoherence. Took me a little bit longer to get to some of the questions. I kind of had to like bullshit my way and fill air in a way until I got to the point where I was like had constructed the right way, figured out a way to phrase the question correctly, basically. So that's one where I think I learned from that one. I've prepared a much more in-depth document for the next Hammer Meet Anvil, just because I know what's going on with the whole situation. Yeah, so the reason why the questions are long, and this is something that I think is pretty important, generally speaking, is some questions won't be. Some, especially if you watch like the Haka one that I just put out. The the questions are sometimes much shorter, but usually the shorter ones are follow-up questions. When we're initially broaching a topic, I try to like front end the question and ask them like, what do you think about this, or what's your opinion on that, or can you share some thoughts about this? And then after that I go into some more contextualization, so they've got the question, they've got time to think about their response, and then I give them a bit more context that maybe shapes how they come out the gate with that answer, or speaks to something that they can follow up on after they start the initial answer or whatever. Like gives them a little bit of time to catch up, basically. Which I've picked up from watching a lot of Thorin interviews and Richard Lewis interviews. Like Thorin is famous for having really long questions. But he also adapts pretty well. Like he's been doing it for like literally decades. So he adapts pretty well to like if they're if they have short answers, he just goes down the list of like questions that he's got in his head, or bullet points that he's written down or whatever. But I think in the Hammer Meet Anvil one, yeah, it was more obvious that it was a disparity because of the way that was handled, right? So because of the fact that the other guy was good old Pullman wasn't super comfortable on camera, as I alluded to, as you mentioned. And I actually just got word back from another map maker who wants to come on, who accepted the invitation. So real quick, before I continue with this, I have to verify what time I'm doing. Oh. the fuck? I think it's an 8-hour difference, or is it a 6-hour difference? Oh yeah, Central European time, CEST. So that's 12. Yeah, well, a big part of it is that, like, yeah, so what they do is they'll, like, tweet about it, or they'll retweet it, or usually both. I've got a guest tomorrow that is not, there's not going to be a problem getting views. I'll put it to you that way. So, but I sort of understand what you're getting at. To me, I'm more interested in the feedback from the people that I've interviewed, or the people who are like broadcast talent or whatever, and then just like trial and error stuff on my part, and like looking back at it in retrospect on my part. I'm more interested in stuff like that, just because that feels more like, I don't remember if I actually built that latest change. I don't think I did. But basically, I look at it like, even if the view counts are low, if I feel like the content is high quality, then I'm succeeding. And I feel like the views will just happen as a result of the quality continuing to be high. So, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to have to remove the overcharge slow separately. Overcharge? Is that in here? Shaman status? Operational? Padding. I assume this is something to do with that. Maybe in unit speed there's a clue. No, that's for something else. Well, there's got to be some code in here that handles the. This code should probably be deleted or commented out. Yeah, it took me a bit by surprise as well, but I also think a large part of what drives traffic, until you've made it with enough of a dedicated fan base that knows that you exist and watches your content through YouTube subscriptions or whatever, until you get to that point, a lot of your traffic comes from Reddit. And a little bit will come from Twitter retweets and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's Reddit, which is really unfortunate for me because I really don't like that. But that's pretty much what we have, you know? Like, we don't have a whole lot of anything else. So I think actually the overcharge behavior was removed, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently not. But how would it have still... I'm so confused. This should probably just be removed. Since I don't think it's that necessary, we can just set their shit in Flingy instead. I mean, the overcharge stuff is probably overtuned anyway. I would like to remove it. Okay, so I asked iQuery about that. I'm hoping that actually later today, after I'm done double checking all of the defensive matrix stuff, I mean, like, I'll show you what I got here. So these are the changes that need to be finished before all of the things that I would like to have implemented are done. And at least like this is my current list. There's probably a bunch of shit that's going to get, go up higher than that. So we got some bugs and we got some more features. I need to look into the quarry. That'll be something I do today. I'll also look into the Maelstrom change. I'm gonna say, I mean, I would like it to be ready by tomorrow, to be honest, but I think the biggest change that would be required for that is we need to stabilize the Gladius, and then I need to fix the AI up. So maybe later today I work on the AI to try to get that into a reality. But if it's not done by tomorrow, I'm not going to force the issue per se, unless we just accept the fact that the AI is going to be stupid. The AI are the biggest thing, though. I have to shake up the Terran build orders again, and I'm going to have to add on to a lot of the other, a lot of the Protoss build orders. So might be a couple hours of today's stream later on. So yeah, hopefully it'll definitely be soon, just because it's about fucking time. And it's getting to the point where there's less and less to worry about in terms of units added. So that's it for now. But thanks for popping in and talking shit. Always nice. I'll catch you some other time. Been slacking on SP testing once it was brought to Friday night. Yeah. I mean, I've played some co-op games with my brother and stuff, but I think for the most part it was just that there's not that much single player content. So that'll be what Deliverance is for, I guess. Well, that seems to be working. See you later. All right, what else do we got going on here? Check Captivating Claws. I can check... That was stupid. Okay. So that works. There was some other thing that I wanted to check, because I think I have to remove something else. Something else that's like a vanilla behavior, but I honestly can't remember what it was. Maybe I was just losing my mind. Oh yeah, we have to check hallucination. I think I already checked this. I'm not sure, to be honest. Wait. Ghost. Okay, seems to work fine. Pranked. Thought he was going to keep walking. So we haven't tested observance. It's really hard to do that with no read, so that's pretty much the only thing that's left. But I would have to imagine that it's working as intended based on the way that everything else is implemented. For sure, once we get a read for it, it'll be a lot easier to test it anyway. And I should just confirm that we don't actually have a read. Yeah, okay. So we can knock that testing out of here. I need to do a little bit of hunting over here. Down in building Terran and building Terran inject. So say S32. I wonder if that was the issue, that it wasn't returning anything. Probably the same deal for this. Let me just jump in and take a look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, that's a 0. We'll go to this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, that's a 4. So the wrapper nops are accurate. Wake up. So I don't know what the refresh screen was for. I don't know if that was linked. I think that was unrelated, though. That was, if I had to guess. So I'll keep that one disabled, and we'll just test the one hook at a time, because I want to see if there's something wild going on here. I should take a look at weapon fire inject. Yeah, it is EAX that gets it. Yeah, should it F5 to generate the pseudocode for this one? It's called ECX. If I go to building turn inject, that's ECX0. In theory, that's good. I don't know. Not sure what would be the problem other than me foolishly, incorrectly not returning the value or whatever. Okay, 3695 in hooks RS. What is this? Map tile flag placement hook. So I don't know if this is actually an issue or if there's just a conflict between plugins. This might be like a helper function or something. That looks like a no. So it looks like we are still getting some sort of issue, but I'm honestly not sure what it would be. What was that? I'll just run the exe and try to build another nuclear silo, and it should tell me. The len is 96, but the index is 1632. And what is 3695 anyway? If I jump back to hooks RS. Yeah, something's probably being passed incorrectly, if I had to guess. If I go back to building Terran inject. Well, I'd like to see what we get out of the other hook. Maybe there's something here. Now it looks like we get the same thing somehow. So I guess they both interact with whatever is fucked up here. It might have something to do with it. Still getting the same result here. Well, I guess I'll just double check that this is actually a problem when we have one of these enabled, and it could be that I just didn't notice that this is an issue. Okay, it is a new issue, which is good. So let's see if it's in the hooks. Or if it's in the wrappers. Nothing there. Try them both. I'm assuming since it must be something in the hook because they both had the same result, right? So sure is taking its sweet fucking time over here. Oh, never mind. I just didn't scroll down. Classic, dude. I like that one. That's pretty funny. Okay, so we know what's going on there. Maybe it has something to do with the double casting over here. I don't know. It has to be something that's used in both functions because the same error is happening, like no matter what, right? So we're gonna look for anything that's similar between these two. So I'm looking for like function calls that are the same. Oh, yeah, that probably has something to do with it, considering we're calling the function. So I guess that would mean... Would that mean that, though? Because we're calling the function, right? Yeah, okay. So even if we disable the hook, it might still result in the same thing, if I had to guess. I don't know. So since this second function, refresh screen, calls update placement state for placement box, that could easily be somewhat related to the issue. This is 48D DC0. Is that the wrapper? Yeah, 48DCE0. Okay. So it's nothing like that in theory. So can build on tile location. Seems accurate here. 473 FP0. This is a doozy too. Oh, this could easily be the cause. You're supposed to push these in like reverse order. Yeah, because all of these are stack args. Okay, that could have been it. Let me look through and see if there's any other cases. We'll push this in inverse. Yeah, that might as well have been it, honestly. That just could have been like a bad helper definition, something like that. Since I assume that is a bug, we will go ahead and give it a shot here. Incorrect player ID 255 in map tile flags placement hook. That did not fix anything. That actually made something more disastrous, apparently. I wonder why. Do we have like another example of a very large helper function somewhere? Yeah, like you can see how push... Well, I guess move doesn't matter, but is anything that's a stack arg needs to be pushed first in reverse order. That's my understanding of things anyway. So I'm not really sure if there's some relevant thing here. And pretty much the only thing I can think of is that maybe... No, that's assigned S32, yeah. Well, it might also be that that is correct, and we're getting the debug message that we should have gotten this entire time or something, where the player ID is fucked from something else. But that usually means that there's something that's getting messed up. You know what I mean? Like that usually means something's being passed incorrectly, either through helper function or something like that. What's up, Veek? Well, I'm pretty certain here that we're dealing with something that is very strange. And I'm not sure what the issue would be per se here. So this function, update placement state for placement box, is called by refresh screen, and obviously it exists by itself. I just caught this issue down here, which I assume it's an issue anyway, if I can find it again. Hold on. I had this in where it was push A1, A2, A3, like in least to greatest, and I realized I should probably switch this up so that it's pushing in reverse order, because that's what you're supposed to do with stack arguments, is push them in a reverse order like that. So I could change all these to S32s. Not that it matters that much, but trying to figure out what the cause of the issues are. So basically, like now it crashes on startup before it saying that there's an invalid player ID, and before it was different crash. It's an A's panic specifically because there's an A's function that has worked for forever. That's a hook for something about building on tiles. So I don't think the A, like there's a conflict because neither of the functions are hooked in A's, but there's something going on where you get an incorrect. So you get something incorrectly anyway. I'm not really sure what's up with that. I don't think I did any actual changes, but I'll build just to be safe, and then we'll see what we get. I'm pretty sure we're just going to get the same thing as we got before. So at 3605 in the placement hook, we get incorrect player ID, and all it is if player is greater than 12. So somehow the player got pranked. I'm not really sure what happened. But the real weird thing is that this map tile flag placement hook doesn't actually exist in, like, it's not even remotely, it's not in GPTP at all. It's not in there as a helper or as a hook. It, at least, I would have found the memory for it somewhere. Yeah, because if I go into inject and I disable these wrappers, it doesn't happen. Like if I comment these out and then build, we don't get the issues. As you can see, everything's fine. Now, if I only uncomment one of them, maybe we'll get something different. Because I did all of this, like, try one, disable one, try another thing. I did all that before, for just to see what would happen. Can't build off the map, by the way. So we still get some issues, but no crash. Yeah, I already did all that shit, but I did some changes since then, so... Yeah, so the issue is somewhere in refresh screen, I guess, for that particular crash. It's just that like refresh screen also calls update placement state for placement blocks directly. So I mean, it always does. It does that even like, you know. So that's not really that surprising, I guess. But there's got to be some issue here. I also tested without with result being 0 always instead of so like commenting out the actual hook. But I'll do that again as well. Maybe we'll find something else that's useful. Yeah, that's about what I thought. That's what happened before too. If the result is always 0. So that's unchanged thus far. I wasn't sure if it had something to do with this like weird casting here, but it's related to player. The only thing I can think of is that the unit ID is something different. Like it's passing something and then trying to access the whatever the offset is for the player ID, and it's getting something that's incorrect. Like it's not getting a unit pointer, and that's what's happening. That's what I would assume is happening anyway in a case like this. And we don't even need this code anymore. I don't know why we're subtracting unit ID command center, but you know. It's pretty annoying not having a read on what's causing these issues. Well, I was just hoping that there was some obvious error that I had made that you would be able to catch. All right, I'll re-enable everything else because it looks like it's bricking on assigning place building message ID to update placement state for placement box, which is the other thing that's hooked. So we're going to check with that being the only one that's commented out. Destroyed. Okay. Well, time to find this. Six 640-958. Well, it is a U32, so there's that. And this is a U16. I'm not sure if it's U. Is it always U? I mean, I don't see any S. Of course, it would be always U. What a simulation question. I see some S's down here, but presumably they don't have to be signed. I don't know. I mean, they're just IDs, yeah, so they probably don't need to be signed. 64088A. So these are, those are fine. Like, these are accurate in that they're word and D word. Now, if I jump back to the code, that means that there's something in update placement state for placement box that's fucked up. Which means I need to check all these now. 64088C. That's a byte, all right. Place building X is... Oh. That's 16, not 32. That's kind of obvious since it's X and Y. So that's wrong. Just placing add-on, that's a D word, 6408884. 64088A is just a word that's U16 or 32. Yeah. Place building type. And that is an S. Yeah, it's an int, so. Well, maybe it's just the fact that these two were fucked up and those were being passed as 4 byte instead of 2 byte, but I'm not sure. I have to double check some other stuff now. Unit type. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, so. Okay, we'll try that. There's only one function that's called for update placement state for placement box, and it's can build on tile location. And if I mean, this is the giant function here that's got like the 9 args, and they're all stack args. And I'd already double checked the function const thing here, so. And it moves result to moves EAX to result, pops. It's pretty straightforward in that respect. It does return an int, so that makes sense. Yeah, I'm just gonna wait for this to finish building and moment of truth. Just make sure that I uncommented the function call. Okay. Yeah, we're still getting fucked somehow. Does this look right to you, the way that I set up this wrapper? I can DM you it if it'll be easier for you to read. Dude, what the fuck? Why are all these clocks are so terrible? These time zone things. Oh, okay. That is CEST. Oh, it's running it kind of late for him. Hmm. You're never supposed to use ret_n in any of the helper functions. I've never seen a helper function with ret_n, so with like ASM return. When I had everything pushed in a different order, right? I was getting a different issue, which makes me feel like I was supposed to have it in a different order, but that doesn't really make any sense to me. Like, yeah, now we're getting a different issue, so. Well, this doesn't look like it's a super complicated hook. Like I could easily put this into GPTP, but I don't fucking know. I guess that's another thing that I should check here is, hold on. Oh yeah. So here's the other question mark. These are all listed as ints in the IDA, and yet in the actual variables that I'm passing, place building X and place building Y, those are U16s, right? Unc placement related is a U8. Um, so these variables for the arguments are incorrect. I'm almost certain of it. Like if this is real, then it should be C unit, then U8, then two U16s, and then the unit type is a U32, okay, or S32 or whatever. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter in that case. And then the rest of them, I don't know if they're ints. I mean, it looks like they're just bools. But I can leave them as ints. It shouldn't matter. I guess this shouldn't matter though, right? Like this shouldn't actually impact anything. But like if I do S8, S16, 16, like presumably that doesn't actually matter, but I don't know. It's really weird. Unfortunately, we are not. It doesn't feel like we're really any closer to understanding what the problem here is. But it sounds like it's time for me to start commenting all of this shit out. So So we'll comment out these function calls, and this will tell us if we are dealing with something unrelated to those function calls, and then it won't matter what the helper is if we're still getting the issue. Okay. All right, so it is something to do with this. I don't really know how that helps me, but all right, we know it's something to do with can build on tile location. So what would you suggest to do? What, place building X? Why? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9. Oh, you're talking about this? Where there's some math involved? Didn't even notice that. Unfortunately, it's the same deal. Why? I feel like we're spinning in circles here because it doesn't matter. None of this shit should matter at all. We're dealing with a situation where the unit does not have a player. Maybe it should return if, like, it should just return 0 if active portrait unit is null, because I'm not selecting anything. Would that be relevant? Would that explain why there was 255 as the player ID? Because, like, if that's the case, that's a really goofy fucking oversight. But that's the only thing I can think of. It's like it's not getting a player ID from a unit correctly. And the only thing that's related to units here is active portrait unit. Okay, well, we're still getting something fucked. Because that just means it's not running. There's still something else happening. Ugh. So confused by this. How would I check if it's null? I mean, it doesn't matter because then when I selected something, there would have been up an active unit there, so. But anyway, this is fine to check. I'm just checking to see if... Oops. Why? No, that didn't change anything. Or 8 CE0, whatever the fuck. 48D CE0. Well, what would you suggest in a situation like this when we've got some lack of player ID collection happening? Like it's obvious that the wrong pointer or the wrong value or something is happening. Like something is being passed incorrectly, you know what I mean? That much is clear. But I don't know what it would be. Yeah. Like I don't think it can possibly be anything in the wrapper. Uh, the only thing I can think of is that the IDA casts this stuff as UA, like unsigned instead of signed. But it has nothing to do with active portrait unit like that. That's what gets me. Like this is the IDA's printout of the whole ordeal. Maybe it's some A's issue that iQuare would know when he looks at it. I mean, I can try to do that, but then it doesn't let me divide them by 32 afterwards. I mean, I guess I could divide them by 32 in... I don't fucking know. I mean, it doesn't matter because, like, it's... I'm not even getting to the point where it's doing this math when the crash happens. Like, the crash happens on this. Hey, what's going on, man? How do you say that? Juanes? Juanes? However you say your name. Welcome. Hope you enjoyed the donator discussion. See if we get anywhere with this one. Oh yeah, I've got to do that trick that I did earlier. To bypass that, and then I'm going to attach Ollie and see what I can find here, because I want to make sure that it's actually busting at the same case as before. So if we jump into tools, yeah, it just terminates the process. That bypasses Ollie entirely, so I'm not even sure how to debug that particular issue. That just seems like it's going to have to be something that iQuery looks at, because I am definitely at a loss. So right now we'll just disable the hooks. We'll see what we can do later on. Make sure that everything is by the book. Okay. Did you end up checking out that donator discussion, Veek? Did you have any thoughts? Any feedback? I feel like I always come off a little strong, a little rough on the edges there, which is not really the worst thing in the world, but might give the wrong idea. All right, so we'll say fix. Need some more music. What do we got here? Feels like nothing good. I'm gonna have to go find some more neuro funk. Well, mostly because Zen is he was pretty quiet there, and I didn't want to feel like I was just taking over the whole conversation. But I gotta put in another interview at the calendar 1 sec. He mostly follows League, so excuse me. All right, cool. The letters uns or uns. Okay. Cool. I will confess I've been thinking about ways to do some frag movie stuff. I might have gotten some work done on that. I might still get some work done on that today, actually. I downloaded some demos from HLTV. Can go find some shit there. I've been just picking up like songs that I listen to in the background of these mod streams, and I'm like, oh, that would make a good song. I would take that. I'd take a look at that. But yeah. See what happens. It's definitely not my known forte, but I figure I can probably put something together. So let's see if we can convert this guy into something half resembling a Zerg unit. I'm thinking this will be like a Nathracor evolution that will require further evolution of the Nathrok Lake, but I'm not sure yet. I kind of like the idea of players being able to like go super specialty into like one branch of the Zerg tech tree. Like when we have the new engine and we have whatever the Zerg turned into in the new game, it would be really cool to see something like that, in my opinion. It's like you almost have a situation where you have like the opportunity to you have the opportunity to basically say like, here's my all of the units you can get from the spawning pool. So you can morph the spawning pool into another, like one Nathrok Lake, Vorful Pond, whatever. Like all the options that you currently have, you got those two options. And then you can go like a step further if you want to, and morph on top of that. So you're almost creating another kind of nerve center, the same way that you have the nerve center of the Overlord Iris that morphs into all that shit, that unlocks your actual tech up. I think that could be neat, like conceptualizing individual tech structures in that way could be really cool as like a racial thematic. Because for the Protoss, you just escalate down the branch by building additional production structures and additional tech structures to unlock new stuff. And then for Terrans, you obviously like just change your add-ons. So like you've got this central mechanic to it, and I think playing up the morphing side of things, it's not a bad idea for Zerg. It feels pretty good for them, like thematically appropriate or whatever. I had an interesting talk with Loller Skates yesterday when he mentioned that in his version of Zerg, you can actually get Lair or Hive first. And so you can decide if you want to like have a stronger mid-game army or a more expensive but late, like you basically unlock Ultralisks and Defilers before Lair or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how it works, obviously, but that was an interesting approach, I thought. I don't know if it would actually feel that satisfying, but it's definitely like radical enough while still being interesting in what it accomplishes that it made me think about that sort of thing. So Loller Skates, dude. He's on Twitch chat sometimes. He says his first message is always an upside down U. That's how he greets himself or makes his entrance. He knows the market, okay? He knows what crowd he's dealing with here. I can't wait till we don't have to deal with what's it called? The palette limitations of Brood War. We can't really fully realize like how useful and epic that's going to be because right now, because we don't have like we've got these full color assets from 5 Nations that we're ripping, right? That I'm ripping. But we don't have a lot of like of our own assets that are held back in that way. But we're really going to feel it, I think, when we see some of this shit and see how like less limited we are. Basically, it's going to be pretty emphatic, I think. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Yes, that's roller skates. That's probably like a regional thing. You might not have that, but 8 usually means like the number 8 is pronounced as if you were saying the number 8. So SK8 would be skate. It's from way back in the day. I think I got most of this stuff on the initial pass. Unfortunately, there's a lot of like pure bright pixels that should be manually converted, but that just means that at some point later on I can polish this graphic up. It doesn't have to be immediately. Hey, I wonder if the Zoe units have thrusters. I wouldn't expect that they would, but out of curiosity. Yeah, they don't appear to. That would be kind of funny. Oh, okay. Well, you know what they say, man. I wonder if I decided to use any of the SIL units besides the bar guest. Doesn't look like it. I feel like the shard worker could work. It's just like very specific, you know what I mean? But it could be pretty cool. And obviously I need the golf cart at some point. I can't believe the golf cart doesn't have a thruster. Was that even the name? I forget what I gave it. All right. Here's our vertebrate man. If only I could type. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. So we're talking 15 times 17. Always takes a little while to extract them vertically for some reason. It's cool that it has an attack animation. A lot of these don't have one, which is pretty annoying. All right. So let's take a look and see if we can figure out a way to make the Maelstrom weapon be used for the targeting and all that shit. If I jump into Maelstrom, we're going to tick use weapon targeting. And we're going to jump to this weapon and we're going to say fly and don't follow target. Yeah, terrain is fine as a targeting. We're going to data override it anyway, but for now we can make it use the phase disruptor graphic. I don't know why the icon would be a lockdown of all things. They probably just set that as a placeholder or whatever. Speaking of which, I just remembered that the ghost should probably have the spider mine icon instead of the whatever it had before. What are my thoughts on it? Aside from feeling like sometimes I come across a little too blunt or too rough, I feel like it was pretty good, generally speaking. Like, it seemed like Jerky's minion enjoyed himself. That guy's been supporting Thorin for years now at a pretty high amount of money, so he's the guy who gets all the special shout outs and all that. But I thought Zen had interesting questions for league stuff because it wasn't like specific. I vaguely follow the scene, so I could follow what he was talking about, and Thorin was also able to like craft his response in a way that made like connected back to other topics, and it was interesting. Obviously, none of them really have a particular theme or like guiding line because that's not really the kind of content it is, right? It's almost like a general esports talk show with just a couple of people, you know? So I think that's fine, you know? Some of the best ones are like that. Like there was one where they talk about fucking Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition stuff that was like a couple months back. And I thought that was pretty cool. I enjoyed listening to people, you know, riffing on that topic and explaining like some of the stuff there. They talked about like there's some tournament that they do where you don't know who the people are, and they have like basically the results are only revealed when the entire tournament is won. So they're live streamed, but they're all like under pseudonyms. You don't know any of their names, and so you watch the matches, and it's like a phantom thing or whatever. Like you don't who actually is in the final, and then it's the whole bracket and all that is revealed afterwards. So you get to see like, oh, I thought that guy might have been that guy, or wow, I didn't think that guy could be like that guy, and you know that was kind of neat. It's like imagining if you can try to figure out something about the play style. So it was cool to hear them talk about stuff like that. Like that's kind of those are some of the best ones, generally speaking, in my opinion. And It is pretty disgusting that there's random chance in some of those. Yeah. I will definitely agree with that. I hate anything that has something to do with like just randomly evening the playing field or impacting the way things are. Feels really bad. What was I even coming in here to test? Oh yeah, Maelstrom. I wonder if that was that simple. Looks like it might be. Wow. It was actually that simple, dude. Holy moly. I never would have guessed. Well, there you go. Maelstrom's now a projectile. We just need to figure out a good projectile for it. So let's take that off the list. Let me find the hook. The one with Haka? What did you think about it? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's like nice chatter, you know? Nice it's like thoughtful discussion that you can tune in or out depending on what's going on. Works out. Friend tried to argue that slight randomness can teach and encourage dynamic decision making. I mean, insofar as it forces you to do something different or forces a different outcome no matter how many times you do the same thing. But that's not really dynamic. Like it is in a way that it's not valuable. It's not a valuable amount of dynamism, whatever you'd call it. So yeah, I don't know. That's not quite my cup of tea either. I'm with you, Veek. Okay, let's look for some potential projectiles. I'd hope for like a really big one for Maelstrom, but so maybe we can go into the projectile one and find something. If that didn't have a lens flare, it might be epic. Weapon. Okay, so we're shit out of luck in anything over there that's already been converted. So we're going to try our hands at finding something that we might be able to use in another world. Hmm. So we could do Energy Ball 3. Of course, it's got to be 3. Let's see what else we can find in here, though. I wonder if that could be the that could be a hit marker for something. I'm not sure what though. Could be the Madcap. Could be the tank. I don't know. I think for CS:GO stuff, like we need to try something much different and much more involved. But Valve only wants to do shit that's like entry level, you know? That's very small, very safe, very basic. I mean, I guess in a way I understand why, but it's pretty lame, you know what I mean? Like, come on now. Like, I would like to see a much more obvious weapon rebalancing. I want the Krieg back, but in a way that's more balanced. Like, at least partially revert the nerf that came to its actual stats and maybe up the cost a little bit more and make it like a dominant, right? Like a powerful weapon that will still have less fire rate than the AK, but more accuracy, obviously the scope, and more expensive. You know what I mean? Like I want actual choice between weapons. They went super heavy-handed with the Krieg nerfs, and to the point where it's not even like worth picking the weapon up anymore. Oh, yeah, I wanted to try the Mad Cat. Oh yeah, so I guess we could use the shotgun maybe. It does feel a little involved, but I'll take a look at it. So Cyclops. Weapon hit. I'm gonna have to create a flingy entry for that. I think, yeah, honestly, I think for Counter-Strike, there should be a trade-off for spawns. So like, maybe you pick a spawn, and that's your spawn for that half. Like, maybe that's a permanent spot. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like that's the thing too. Is like if you make it so that it's permanent, and then maybe there's like that player's specific graffiti or some sort of marking on the spawn. Like think Dust 2 T side T spawn, right? You've got a marking on the ground where that player spawns, and it's like the profile picture of the player or something, or like the color of the player. You know how it's like red, green, blue, yellow, purple. So like the color of the player or something like that. And it's a small thing. It's just a detail on the ground. Like it's not going to get in the way of readability or whatever. But the point is, if you know that, like when you scout the enemy's bomb site or the enemy's spawn, you would get that kind of information, and you would see like what their spawns were. And over time, like you would just know, like, oh yeah, that player's got the long spawn, or that player's got the B rush spawn, or whatever. You know what I mean? I guess the main problem is that in Dust 2, at least, like it'd probably be pretty binary. Like everybody would always be picking the long spawn for at least one of their players. You'd have to worry about that being like always being a possibility, I guess. But that's still better than it randomly being a possibility, because you already have to play as if it was always a possibility, because it's random and you don't know. Whereas like at least if you scout that shit and you figure it out, like, oh yeah, that would be better. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Because I think anytime where you have like the potential for it, but you don't know for sure, like that's way worse than it always being there. Even if it's a powerful strategy or a really good asset for them to have, like a long spawn is really powerful, obviously. Even in situations like that, it's still better to know that they have it than to not be sure, in my opinion. So I just wish that it was a bit more consistent. And I like the opportunity of having teams, like something I talked about in the Haka episode of my interview show was, and admittedly it would probably add too much complexity to actually be implemented, but the idea was, people keep saying change up the bomb sites every now and then. But the problem that you would run into is that you would have bomb sites that change up, and it would be like change for the sake of change instead of it being meaningful. And so my thought process was make players pick between bomb site stuff or whatever. Like the T team picks what bomb site style. So if there's 2 options for each bomb site, like there's 2 variants of Inferno B and 2 variants of Inferno A, the T side could pick, they could pick to change a bomb site to the other variant or something. And then when the half switches, the other T side can choose what they want over halftime. Like they can vote on that or something. Like I think that could be interesting, because you can actually just change it to be a situation where you're dealing with something like that. You know what I mean? Well, that was specifically regarding vertigo, because you have ears literally everywhere. Um, because like the map is very compact and layered on top of itself. But I also think that there should just be different things that map makers experiment with. Like, how about a material that doesn't make sound when you run on it? Why isn't that in the game? Why isn't that something that you can do? That would actually fix the. I mean, it sounds like an extreme like gimmick fix or whatever. But if it was an actual mechanic in the game and it was used elsewhere too, then you could use it sparingly or extremely, maybe in Vertigo, and have certain pathways be like a potential thing where you need vision of it to see what's happening. Maybe it would be too overpowered, but it would be something to at least consider. Like there should probably be something that comes into the play here that changes shit up, you know? Well, CT has to defend it. I think maybe CT picks one and T picks the other or something. That could also be a way that you do it. Like CT picks A, T picks B. I just don't know how you would figure that out. On a pro level, it's easy because you just say whoever picks the map, the team that doesn't pick the map, like say we're doing a map veto at the pro level, and I pick Mirage, well the other team would pick the side, so they would pick T or CT side to start on, and then maybe they pick a bomb site variant. They change one. Maybe you can only change one. Like maybe it's the default, and you choose to change one of them or not. But then when the half turns over, you can choose to like that. That would be interesting because then it's like that we're loading into it to Dust 2, and we pick Dust 2 bomb site A variant, like the second variant there, but like we change up bomb site A when we're loading in, but then the half switches over and the other team can either change bomb site A back or they can change bomb site B to another one. Like there could be a situation where after the halftime they change it over or something. Like there's just stuff that you could do anyway, is what I'm getting at. Like maybe that solution isn't I'm not even suggesting that it would be a cure-all or would fix a lot of problems, but it could add another layer of strategical depth to the map and help shake things up and keep things from being stale, but in a way that is controlled, because you don't want to just be making change for the sake of making change. I understand that most of the people who are familiar with my work on this channel already accept that premise, because we've seen Starcraft 2 and how it's been run into the ground by insane changes where they're just like completely rebalancing it every few months. Like that's stupid, obviously. League of Legends is very much the same way, where they just change shit all the time, especially the jungle rule. It's like you just get that pulled out from under you all the time. So like I'm not a fan of that. I want something that stays a bit more consistent. But that doesn't mean that you have to make things always the same. Like you can actually come up with a system like what I'm talking about, and then suddenly there's variance on a per map basis, on a per game basis, that allows you to see what kind of style a team plays. Like maybe one variant of a bomb site is easier to retake, but also easier to take in the first place. So it's like harder to hold on to on both angles. Like the T's have an easier time getting there, but the CTs can retake it easy. Like I'm thinking like train B site, where it's really easy to get retakes on there if you can get into good positions. Like maybe that's one style of a bomb site. Like maybe they change Inferno or Dust 2 B site to be more easily retakeable in some capacity, and then you can decide: do I want a B bomb site that's easier to target, but I also have to make sure that I frag out and stop them from being able to retake. Like it's a nuanced decision to be made. I guess it could run the risk of muddying the identity of a map, though, so you do have to be careful with that shit. Oh yeah, well, I mean, the whole reason I came up with that idea is because a lot of people have said, like Moses has that idea on Counterpoints, like, oh, just change the bomb site every few months or something. I don't want it to be changed for the sake of change, so this is like some sort of compromise between a more consistent approach and that approach. But I agree that you should just change the maps. I would change 2 maps every major. People have said like change 1 map. I would change 2. I would change, like honestly, if it were up to me, I would change even more than that. But I think 2 is like a reasonable compromise between a necessary amount of change and something like that. And I would also allow that's the other thing is I wouldn't just be like, I'm the god of CS and you're changing it to meet my whim. I'm also saying like, all right, pros, play these community made maps at some point after the major, and we'll figure out or at some point during a player break, maybe. I don't know, maybe that would be unreasonable to expect, but I would have a part of the calendar dedicated to professional players playing some of the contenders for the maps that would be shipped into the map pool, because we have a lot of really good maps in CS, in custom maps. So players would be given an opportunity, and they could take it or leave it, and they could vote on what maps get pass muster, and their votes would be taken into consideration. Maybe their votes would be the defining factor. I don't know exactly how far it would go, but that would be something that I would be interested in exploring. So they vote at least on what maps get come in, right? They give their seal of approval via voting. And maybe I don't know if I would allow them to vote on what maps get sent out, because there's an element of like a potential conflict of interest there where maybe they vote on their weakest map or something. You know what I mean? So I probably wouldn't allow them to do that. But once they vote on, like, once I figure out what the top 2 maps are that have been voted up well, I figure out a way, like, what map does this feel similar to? Like, if there's a map where it's like a DM style map, like Dust 2 basically, then maybe I replace Dust 2 with that map because there's no reason to have too many of the same kind of map in the map pool. Which is, if I had to speculate, is probably why Cache did not replace. Um, I don't even remember what map Vertigo. I think Vertigo replaced Cache initially, but if I had to sort of postulate a reason why Valve did not replace Vertigo already or replace another map with Cache, it's because Dust 2 is already in the map pool and they're similar enough in the way that they're like aim maps in a obviously that narrative is taken to an extreme level, but as much as any competitive map in the current map pool is an aim map, it would be Dust 2 and Cache. Like, those are the closest ones that resemble that sort of thing. What is blah? Is that some meme I'm not sure about? This does make me, like, it does remind me of when the decider was like randomly selecting between maps or something, and so you'd just like randomly get one of the newest maps that nobody had played, and you'd get a shit third map, which was pretty miserable, I will admit. Okay. Oh, blah. Not familiar. Can't say I am. I know what you're talking about at all there. How many frames do we got here? Oh, goodness. This is out of control. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's at least 10. Looks like it's 12. So 12, 11. Let's take a look at useful script is there. 527. Yep. 00000. Epic. Always lovely when it's easy. All right, so now we just have to go find the Cyclops in here and add the data rewrite for its weapon. We should be good. This is entry 293. And we just need to figure out what weapon they're using. We know it's 55 for the ID, using 93 for the weapon. Great. Oops. Let's give it a shot. It might be a little too noisy for a unit that's going to be as spammed as this one. That sounds like its iScript ID is incorrect. With 507. Yeah, okay, I just fucked that one up. Should be 508, and this should be 508, and we should re-import. Forgot about that. It's also just a little, like, the lighting is a little bit off, so I'm not sure if it would be possible to fix that one, but... It's in there, at least it's something different, so people will be able to know that they're getting attacked by a different unit. And that's what matters. Just a little bit of readability, even if the graphic isn't okay, hand worthy. Okay. All right. I gotta use the bathroom. I shall return in like 2 minutes. Gotta do that and get some more water. When I come back, what is even left to knock off the list here? I'll probably just look for some more graphics. We could always use a couple more reads. BRB? And I'm back. All right. Continuing the search. I noticed this like spike graphic, which is kind of cool. I don't really know what... The problem is that like it doesn't actually have a seamless animation. It just appears. Like there would... You'd think there would be another animation that you could go for there, but alas. Not quite. Oh yeah, I think I was thinking of using this as like some sort of healing effect, but didn't really ever need it. All right. What other things do I need to change up? I guess I definitely need a Gladius projectile change as well, but... Yeah, we need all sorts of custom shit. I still can't believe the Corsair's engine is that stupid. Why is it just a bunch of lens flares? Okay. Forget what index the remapping for B-Expo is. Or no, it's B-Fire for that one, so it's 3. Um... All right, so let's compare the flingy data for the phase disruptor, and we're looking at these big ass numbers. No need for any of that, of course. Copy that stuff down. Magister. And now we need to go find the connected data there. Aw, man, I hit the wrong button. Talk about a misclick. $78. Trying to think of what other projectiles I've implemented recently that don't have like a frame set, but it's just like a straight shot. I guess that would be like, well, that would be like the phase disruptor, so I can just copy this stuff. So we're looking at, this will be Maelstrom projectile, Hydra Protoss Maelstrom weapon, 1212. This will be Magister weapon. I should look for another impact graphic as well, but really? Yeah, we should change the sound for launching the projectile, of course, but we only have so many sounds. Oh, no kidding. I may have forgotten that this is a hit scan attack, actually, so I guess that can be used for So rather than Magister, we should replace this with... I guess that will have to be the Gladius then. But I've already done that, apparently. 67. Oh, I did that for the express purpose of changing up the... yeah, I know why I did that. Okay, so we'll just have to leave that as a dummy one for now. It's not really necessary. So we're going to go into... yeah, we're just going to delete this for now. So then in RPID 1142 is what I'm looking for the Gladius weapon. Is that... yeah, okay. Oh, shit. Well, that should work in theory. You thought I was talking to myself this whole time? Well, I mean, that's not far from the truth, but occasionally, I'm not doing that. So, yeah, I don't know why YouTube does that. I'm not even sure why Veek would be marked as a bad guy. He's a pretty cool guy. All right, just clean some shit up in there. Why would that be like that? Oh, I know why. Because I never went in here and defined it as 9 and 3. Now it should work fine. That is incredibly satisfying. Definitely broken right now, but very satisfying nonetheless. Let's try with a less noisy impact graphic. Reasonable. I think I'm sprawling instead of... Or I should be sprawling. Yeah, it was a sprawl before. So glad we don't have to worry about limits to those kinds of features anymore. It's pretty ridiculous that we had to this whole time. I had to, like, we couldn't add new units. We had to replace existing ones. It's pretty embarrassing. Wow, something's very wrong there. Let's try that again. Yeah. I had the wrong entry there. Oops, not the program I wanted to start up there. Yeah, that's much more reasonable. Dude, that is fucking insane. It's not like 100% consistent yet, but I'm pretty sure you can just one shot. That's pretty amazing. Oh shit. Now, admittedly, this unit is behind a pretty steep paywall, so maybe it's actually fine for it to be like that, but that's a pretty dangerous unit. I might have to like lower its base damage or something. That's pretty cool though. For now, we'll leave it there. So we'll say implement maelstrom and radius projectiles. All right. Question is, what are we doing next? I think that's probably it for effects. Wow. Nice fucking laziness right there, man. Oh, wow, that's embarrassing. That's a very strange walking animation. It looks very wrong. Okay. I think I'm going to make Maelstrom available by default rather than gating it. It is very powerful, but now that it's on a projectile and I can alter the projectile's speed very crucially, I think it'll be fine. So let me find the use tech. And I think I'll go in and actually do that speed adjustment that I just mentioned. What's a good thing to compare it to? Maybe the exemplar weapon. Yeah, you got a really reasonable amount of reaction time there, and of course I can always slow it down afterwards if necessary. Though I think the bigger thing will probably be reducing the AoE of it, but that should work. In theory. Okay. Holy moly. I should take a look at some of the change log here. I've got to add a lot of shit. Hey, thanks for hanging out, man. Always nice to see a new face. Enjoy your sleep. Catch you some other time. All right, I'll dump this right in front here because I'm looking at this. I think amended is spelled differently. Oh no. I guess not. What are you complaining about? Okay. I'm trying to remember. There's got to be more things that were done here. So like, oh yeah, there's another one. So that's the stuff that I just did there. Say Azazal, defensive matrix, now cleanses all debuffs. And cast. I'm going to have to format this shit differently. I guess I can just Google this. You. You. Dude, I have so much shit to add to this changelog, and we're still not fucking done. Can you believe it? Well, there's still a good amount of things that I need to do The Gladius needs to be fixed. But tomorrow, I think we should be looking pretty good. It's just that the AI won't be up to date, which is the biggest issue. The Gladius needs to be fixed. It's almost perfect. I would really like to ship the quarry, but it doesn't seem likely. Dude, when Lazarus Agent for the Apostle is implemented, that's going to be banging. Yeah. And then Entropy Gauntlets has a bunch of issues with it. So there's a bunch of stuff that need to be done, but the Gladius bounce, it's like almost there. So if that can be fixed, we can implement that. That would be great. This is almost there as well. I did the legwork for that. I'm not sure about this, but it would be nice. And this is almost there. Units just pop into existence after dying. Oh yeah, in Toddborn there was a unit that could get an upgrade, and it just respawned like 2 seconds after it died or something, and there was no read. But yeah, there was going to be some sort of glow on the corpse during the respawn timer. Hold on one sec. In cases where there is a corpse, I would actually really like to have that happen. It would be pretty thematic, because that's what I like. I actually want it to feel really unnatural and unnerving. You know what I mean? Like just the idea of some sort of sickening, bone crunching sound playing or something like that, where it's just very visceral as they're like reforming. It's pretty fucking gross, but like in a good way, you know? Like it really sells the thematic. I don't like that. It's taking up too much space. I misclicked again. God damn it. There we go. That's literally the Protoss. So yeah. I mean, that's in Protoss you get robotics. Well, it's let me be sure that this is correct. Yeah, you need tier 1 of the tech of the robotics branch, but it's a similar idea. It's like you get robotics facility and then 1 tech structure and then robotics authority. Or you could just go deeper in the initial tech structure. That's fine too. But it's a similar idea. Like, I don't know exactly how I would handle. I think I would probably have the tier 2 barracks require engineering bay or something, like a tier 2 tech structure for Terrans, but that's because I'm building that thematic around that, so. Yeah, I would imagine it would be like I was talking about I think yesterday, it was like tier 2, tier 1, tier 3, tier 5, like every other tier you get another tech up of production. Oh no, I pulled an iQuery. Yeah, it's like finding a way to provide value for the higher tier production structures despite not necessarily like without you like forcing the player to just build the higher tier units. You should still be able to get some benefit out of the higher tier production structure in my mind, which would either mean like earlier tier stuff is cheaper in resources or cheaper in time cost. I don't know. Maybe it could be a combination. I'm not really sure. I think cheaper would probably be something that would be like a race or faction specific thing. But yeah. Trying to think of a... Okay, I'm trying to think about... I mean, that whole infantry thing is still going to take a little bit for me to figure shit out, but... All right. I think I've documented all of the additions for Protoss now. It's certainly been a while since I've been paying attention to that. It's going to, yeah, it doesn't right now. That's another thing that needs to be changed. Okay, I think we are... Yeah, I think that's probably as comprehensive as we're going to get right now. I need to go back and look at a few more things, but a lot of this shit is just like up to yeah, it's there's going to have to be some more. I'm going to have to take some more looks at some of this stuff, I guess. Oh, did I actually bring in? I don't think I saw the Gorgon or Salamander in there. All right, cool. What a fucking change log. Oh, hey, maybe I'll actually, if I'm not ready to actually drop this tomorrow, I mean, my birthday's Tuesday, so could be big. Could drop it on my birthday. Happy birthday to me. You know what I mean? Could be epic. All right. I think for now we'll leave it the way it is. Should be fine. Tell me I saved. I don't remember. I may not have. I may have to go back in and do all those Archon and High Templar changes. Again. Yeah, I do. Fuck. Idiot. Birthday. Yeah, there you go. Birthday. I'm probably going to have to take another look at the Protoss infantry stuff. I'm not sold on that. No. I'm thinking I'll probably move the Ecclesiast over to the Gateway, but I'm not sure yet. And then the Amaranth can be on the Grand Library, and that could be like your Tier 2 Zealot or Tier 3 Zealot or whatever. All right, so I think that'll do it for today's stream. I've got my fucking work cut out for me today, or I had it cut out for me today. I got some work done. That's good. Got a big interview tomorrow, and then after that, Fraud Night, where we'll probably play CS because I don't think this will be ready. And after that, another mod stream where I will do some more work and probably take a look at the Ecclesia stuff like I was just saying. So that'll be it for today. Thanks everybody who hung out. Always nice. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's mod stream will be another late one, so maybe I'll see you there, Loler. Until then, goodbye.